into artist research, I found that a lot of ravens and birds are done in metalwork, because to create a wingspan in ceramic is incredibly difficult because of the different weights and the pressure points and the amount of stress that it puts on the ceramic body itself. So it was really, really difficult, and I did have to learn an awful lot about what processes would work and what processes wouldn't work, and obviously adjust my expectations.
My tree frogs triptyche, I did that in my first year, and I was very proud of it actually, because it's very mixed media. I found the structure of the course very inspiring to me. Just to play about with materials, colours, all textures was fantastic for me. And this I kind of incorporated into a semi-realistic portrayal of the tree frogs with the abstract textures and colours. Used many different techniques on that one, and I find that people, when it was on exhibition this year, people were actually touching it, which I didn't mind. They found it very tactile, but that's the kind of thing I do like to produce.
I based it around a book that I read, which was Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by Dee Brown. From that I got into looking at Native Americans, and it sort of spun off from there. And it ended up, by the end of the project, being more about political everyday life of today's Native Americans rather than the history of them. The prints were made using screen prints, so basically I had the images and I took them through a photocopy machine, printed them onto acetate. They then got the prints onto the screen, a silk screen, and then from there I printed onto it using general screen printing inks that you buy. And the ceramics were basically built using a method that's called slab building, and they were basically rolled out pieces of clay which were constructed together like bricks almost. So then after that they went through a firing process, which was 1200 degrees Celsius. Then they came out of the kiln, and then I glazed them, fired them again, and then after that I could print onto them using the screen prints.
The title of the piece was Precious Moments, and it was influenced by my son Joshua, who is now 4. I used numerous techniques, so screen prints, stencil prints, as the basis for the textile piece. I then embellished it with embroidery and paint and all sorts of other sort of techniques to produce something that was sort of, I think, sort of multi-layered.
I'd done some research on Renoir, and I came up with the idea of doing a master copy of one of his works, the Boating Party Luncheon. It was I've always been quite inspired by this piece, and it's voted consistently as being perhaps one of the top 10 paintings of all time, and as it was familiar with most people, it seemed a good choice. So the question was do we do an exact copy, or do we make a variation? So I decided after a while to change one or two of the characters, and then it took over, and then I kind of changed as many of the characters as I could. Initially in Renoir's work, all the characters were his friends, were icons in their day and artists, and I decided to call it after Renoir, Artists and Icons, because I used present day artists and icons in the painting.
For my final major project, I decided to base 3 collages around the 50th anniversary of minis. My inspiration for this was the minis and how they've influenced people and how they've influenced cars and everything over time. The contents of the collage was all based around the eras that the minis I chose were. Like the first one I based that around the 60s and how it impacted the 60s. And the middle one was racing and speed and technology. And the third one was how the minis influenced us today, the modern mini. The way I produced the collage was in Photoshop. I cut all the images out, added some effects and cleaned them up and things, and maybe blurred a few edges out, and then I layered them all up in Photoshop on top of a layer at the back, like a flag or something, and made it into a photo montage.
The people that know my sister said, "Oh my God, that's exactly like her," and it was really interesting at the exhibition because my sister Hope, who is the person in the painting, she went round the exhibition and she all felt embarrassed because everyone could tell it was her. There are a couple of things about my final piece which a lot of people probably wouldn't notice, but if I told them they probably would, such as the hand on the left. She's holding this flower that I told her to hold because I thought it'd be quite a relaxed thing to do, and at the time she actually had a broken wrist and she had a cast over one of her hands all the way down her arm, but I took the photographs carefully not to include it, but obviously her hand is actually, her fingers are pushed together, which was actually really hard for me because it was like I had to pretend that it wasn't there, I didn't paint it in, and had to change the shape of her fingers to make it look a bit more natural. Another thing which I really like about the painting for me is because the backdrop is actually our garage at home, and I can recognise that straight away, but a lot of people wouldn't know that. And I also really like the shadows on the painting, and if you look onto the right hand side of the top, she's got a little bit of a blue kind of pattern, dark blue pattern, and that's actually the shadow of the flower, but a lot of people didn't know that either. So, sometimes you just need to explain parts of your work for people to understand it fully.